Thanks a lot.
Good job. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Brittany Gilbertson. I'm the Communications Manager with Life Science Alley. We're very glad to be up here again introducing Pat Dillon of the Minnesota SBIR project. As a trade association for the health technology community, we're very much aware of the amount of time and capital it takes for a startup business to get to that commercialization and profitability stage. So anytime we can bring more resources to the state that support those emerging companies, it's a wonderful thing for our whole community. So just wanted to read a few remarks for you. Pat Dillon is the director of the Minnesota SBIR program, a service of MEDA, the Metropolitan Economic Development Association. This program aims to foster a more innovative Minnesota economy focused on turning new ideas and inventions into products and technologies that spur job growth and competitiveness while promoting economic development. In this position, Ms. Dillon is responsible for the strategic direction and leadership of the Minnesota SBIR program and its services to small businesses and startups in Minnesota. Please welcome Pat Dillon.
Thank you, Brittany. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. This has been a wonderful event for me. This is the first time that I've been here. So thanks to Lois and all the people that have contributed to this effort. So if I could get a show of hands of how many people know about SBIR. Free money, right? It is. It's non-dilutive funding. So it's tax season coming up, right? April 15th, we all got to send our checks in to the IRS. What do we do to get it back? We write really good proposals to those federal agencies that participate in this program. That's how you get your money back, to support your ideas, your concepts that have commercialization potential. So at the end of the day, the SBIR program is really our money that we've sent to Washington. And our goal is to get it back, to support our companies and to support our startups. So I've been playing, as I say, in the SBIR program for about 20 years. For 13 years, I did work here in Minnesota, working with a lot of technology companies in all technology sectors to help them compete and win federal funding to support what they were doing. I love the SBIR program. For someone who's very patriotic, which I am, I love the SBIR program because it supports the American dream. And I would always tell everyone, after I left Minnesota, that what I really loved about my job is that I have entrepreneurs, people with their ideas, their passions, sitting across from me, sharing their hopes and their dreams. And I'd say, you know what? I watch the American dream in action every day. And I still do to this day. I'm very happy to be back in Minnesota in this technology-rich environment with this emerging, wonderful ecosystem to support entrepreneurs of all flavors and across the state. I believe in my heart and soul that there's got to be at least one person, one company in each county in Minnesota that ought to be looking at SBIR as a way to fund whatever they're working on. Now, I will tell you, it is a very complex, complicated, and competitive program. There are lots of small businesses all around the country that are competing for these dollars. Thousands of proposals go in every year for that part of that $2.6 billion that's set aside for the SBIR program and the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. Those two programs make up $2.6 billion. Now you might think, well, that's a lot of money. It is. But when you think about the U.S. and what we contribute or dedicate or invest to R&D, we put in about $140 billion. That gets spread across the universities, federal labs, large companies, nonprofit research organizations, and then small businesses, startups. Your job is to just get a little piece of that to support what you want to do, and then to profit from the commercialization of that technology. I recently had a conversation with someone who I worked with years ago, and this was a person who has a master's degree in rehabilitation engineering. Diane, she's CEO of a company called Blue Sky Designs. She was referred to me, and she had this idea for technologies to support people with disabilities. Very, very passionate, very, very educated in this area, lots of years of experience. And Diane, she just thought, oh, you know, I don't know if this is really a program for me. And I said, well, I differ with your assessment. I really think you have an opportunity here. And so she took my advice, and she went to a national SBIR conference. And they have these conferences 2-3 times a year. And she came back and she wrote a proposal to the Department of Agriculture to develop this vestibule that would go attached to a tent, and it would allow the person that's in a wheelchair to be able to go inside this vestibule and be private and, you know, have some help, you know, obviously getting out of their wheelchair and into their tent. And you might think, well, why would USDA fund this kind of a project? Well, where do most people go camping? They go in rural areas. That was one reason. The other reason is that at the same time that all this was happening, there was a new initiative that came out from the White House that focused on technologies to support people with disabilities. And so we built that into the proposal. So not only do we have a project that supports an entrepreneur, it's a really innovative idea, it supports this national effort, and of course, you know, a big focus on people with disabilities. So she got about $500,000 over 2 phases to support the development of that product. That product is now being sold by Eureka, and it's called the New Freedom Tent. There's lots of life science companies in the Twin Cities that have been very successful in getting SBIR funding. How many of you heard of Surmodics? Very successful. Non-Volatile Electronics, or NVE Corporation. Data Sciences International. They started out in the early 80s. They were one of the first companies to get an SBIR through the National Institutes of Health. They are now up to 200 employees, venture-backed. They sell their products worldwide. So for me, when I look at an idea or a concept, it's not just what's going to happen in that phase 1 stage where you can get $150,000 to support the technical feasibility of the idea, but it's really about what's going to happen in phase 2 when you can get up to $1 million or maybe even $1.5 million to support the prototype development. And then what's beyond that? With the Department of Defense, which is the largest player in the SBIR program, over $1 billion each year, if they like the widget that you've built for them, because that was the widget that they've asked for, they have the opportunity to do potential or sole source contracts. So we have now companies that are getting multi-million-dollar contracts based on the work that they did on an SBIR and the product that, or the service that has resulted from that work. Folks, this is a really, really important program, not only to the economy of Minnesota, but to our national economy. There's been over $40 billion awarded to 100,000 companies throughout the last 35, 40 years of the program. This is real. How many of you heard of Qualcomm? They had some DARPA SBIR funding in the early 90s. Qualcomm is one of the SBA's Hall of Fame companies. This is a company that obviously has done very, very well, made a lot of people rich, has impacted the world economy, the national economy in huge ways. So I think our materials, I'm being told I got to wrap up here. So 2.6 billion. All you need is $1 million, right? What's your idea?
High efficiency motor that doesn't use permanent magnets.
Say that again?
High efficiency motor doesn't use permanent magnets.
Okay.
No China.
No China, okay. So there's an idea, there's a concept that each of you have, that all you have to do is plug it in to see where it fits in the SBIR program, because there are 11 federal agencies. They're all like children. They each have their own personality, they all have their own research interests, their opportunities, and so forth. So if you've got an innovative, game-changing idea or concept, non-dilutive funding to get it off the ground, and whether you're inside a company or just starting out, you need to come talk to me. Come to our next workshop session, March 24th, from 9 a.m. to noon, and you'll get to learn everything you'd ever want to know about SBIR in 3 hours. Not really, but I'll get you started. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to somebody else.